Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another live stream from De Montfort University. Today, we're going to be talking about all things finance and the wonderful world of student finance. First of all, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us this morning. We know the weather is absolutely gorgeous outside. You could be doing absolutely anything right now, but instead you choose to spend the next hour or so with the dream team from De Montfort University talking around student finance. One thing that we really want to encourage is for you guys to get involved with us. These streams are designed for you. We sit here every week to try and help you guys with your transition into university. So we really want to hear from you. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, please do get involved. Give us a hello, give us a shout out, because we'll be reading out those comments as we go through today's show. So again, a massive thank you for joining us. We know you could be watching Netflix, could be watching Amazon. I hear The Last Dance is absolutely fantastic, and you'll hear a few basketball analogies from me as we go through the show. You'll be glad to hear I've got my very own Chicago Bulls with me today from 2020, the De Montfort University team, and I'll be introducing those very, very shortly. So first up, we've got MJ himself. We've got the lovely, the mighty Ben.
I am not going to get any of those analogies, having not seen it myself. I'm really sorry, but I'll take that.
You let down. I wasted the MJ card on you. I could have gave it to the other people.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to disappoint you this morning. But yes, we're going to be talking about student finance. So yeah, do make sure you stick your comments down the side. We'll make sure to read those out. If you've got any worries at all about it, we'll do our best to answer those over the next hour or so.
Coolio, thanks for that, Ben. We'll see if our next colleague gets the intro. So we've got Scottie Pippen, but the female version. We've got Faye. You didn't get it either.
No, sorry.
Oh my God, I need new colleagues. What's wrong with you guys?
Is this the new Netflix thing on Michael Jordan?
It is. It's top 10 in the UK, and I swear, it's probably the best documentary I've watched. I don't even like basketball or anything.
Everyone, turn off now. Go and watch the show.
Yeah, I promise. We'll wait.
I promise you, I'm not telling you all to go watch the NBA show, but when you have finished watching us, please do go check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm still sticking with my basketball analogy. So we've got two rookies for you as well. So our first rookie is Keeleigh.
Hello.
You okay?
Sorry,
have you watched it?
I don't want to. Sorry.
Oh my God.
I will watch it after this because you've hyped it so much. It has to be good, and we agreed on Tiger King. So.
Oh my God! I promise you, it will probably be the best documentary you watch. I'm not joking.
Okay, I haven't documentary, so I will watch it for you down. Then next week we can try this again.
And our last rookie, we've got Tay.
Hi.
You're gonna tell me as well that you haven't watched it as well, haven't you? Oh dear, oh dear.
I'm sorry. I'll watch it after this. But yes, my name's Tay, and I'm a recent graduate like Nikki, and we're here to help you today, having gone through this process not long ago. So yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to pop them down in the comments, and we'll be able to answer them.
Cheers for that, Tay. Just to give you guys a bit of a heads up of what we're going to be covering on today's live stream, we're going to look at all things in regards to student finance. So hopefully we're going to answer some questions that you guys might have in regards to student finance, what you have to pay for, what is a tuition fee, what are maintenance loans, how do we repay for these, is the student debt worth it, what kind of interest rates are on our student loans, and how do we prepare and how do we actually cover some of the natural living costs that we have at university. So what I want to do is start off with Ben, who's going to give us a bit of an intro around tuition fee loans and some of the things in regards to what help is available. Ben, you okay for that?
Absolutely. Let's go for it. I'm afraid I haven't got any more basketball puns though. I have got a mug that says I love spreadsheets on it, so I feel like that might be relevant to the stream. I don't know. So talking about sort of tuition fees and that sort of thing this morning, just to very quickly sort of highlight those. Obviously, looking to go to university, on paper, it sounds like it's quite a lot of money. Universities can charge up to £9,250 per year of study whilst you are at university, which again, sounds like an awful lot. But what we're going to highlight in a few minutes is obviously that student finance will cover those costs. And the loans that are available for your tuition fees will come straight through from the government, straight through from student finance directly to the university. So when we're talking a little bit later about actually how you apply that process, all that money that the university is required for you to actually be there, when you apply for student finance, that process will be then taken from the government, from student finance, directly to the university the day that you enroll. And that loan will cover the entire time at your university. So you can pay for up to 4 years of university through student finance. You can use that to cover all those costs as well. And it's available to all UK and EU national students. So if you are looking to go to university, the support is there for you to use. So keep an eye out for that. If you are an international student, obviously there are slightly different circumstances depending on your situation. So just make sure you're aware of those as well. But for UK students particularly, you'll be able to apply for student finance to cover those tuition fee loans. All of the details for tuition fees are available on the student finance website, which we'll try and flash up at some point during the stream when we get to that stage. And it's, oh, there you go. It's almost like we've planned it. And as I mentioned, it's paid directly to the university at the start of each of the semesters. There is no upper age limit. So if you are looking to go to university in a couple of years, or if you're looking to take a gap year or anything like that, obviously with the current circumstances, or if you're looking to maybe apply for university in 5 years time, 10 years time, student finance and tuition fee loan support is all there for you to kind of pay for all those things that you pay for at university, which I think we're going to come on to in a second.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Ben. Guys, do we think he hit a 3-pointer with that?
Maybe.
I don't know why I'm asking these questions, because you guys are seriously just do not know what I'm talking about, do you? I'm very up with my...
Is 3-pointer a sports analogy? Is that golf? Is that baseball?
Oh, Ben, I'm going to kick you
I
from
think
the
we're still on the basketball theme, Ben. We can safely say
I know.
basketball is the theme.
I know. I'm just pushing his buttons now.
Okay, cool. Ben, thank you so much for that. So what about tuition fees? Tay, can you help us out on tuition fees? What are they? What are they used for?
Yeah. As Ben said, it may seem like it's a lot of money that you're paying to, and you're wondering, what am I actually paying for? There's a lot of things you are, and sometimes you might not have thought about those things. Initially, you are paying for contact hours with both academic staff and support staff around the university. You know, they are working to help you out with your studies. You're also paying for the library, for the online, as well as physical resources, you know, getting books, and some things are not available from other countries. So, you know, the university works really hard try to get these resources for you to have them readily available. You're also paying for computers and IT systems within the university. You know, when you do go onto campus, you'll see lots of IT all around, and they're all obviously free to use for students, but this is what the tuition fee is paying for all students. There's a lot within the tuition fees. You're also paying for a variety of support services, you know, things around the university with things like student unions, which they you know, they work for students, represent the students, organizing things around the campus, off campus, like with societies and things like that. You're also paying for your degree, which is why you have come to university. You're paying for your degree and entry into exams. You would be paying for the exams at the end of the year or every semester. Again, you'll also be paying into you're investing into the campus and the facilities, like, you know, building services. You know, sometimes students may say, oh, we need an extra room, we need an extra, you know, this and that, we need this kind of books. So this is where the university uses that tuition fee money and invests into the campus and invests into the students, so they can have a good experience at the university. And these are just some of the things that, you know, you would be paying for.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Mara, Si, we've had your comments. We can see those. We will be going through those shortly. Guys, if there are any other questions related to finance, please do get in touch. Please do shout up and we'll be able to answer those for you. So one of the questions that we've had is from Mara, which kindly leads us nicely onto our next session in regards to accommodation. So Keeleigh, can you talk to us about some living costs that students might have to think about when they go to university?
Yeah, of course. So as Tim mentioned, me and Tay both graduated in 2018. So we have a relatively recent experience of the university process and all of the living costs you're going to experience whilst you're there. So we're just going to run through a few. The first and foremost, the main thing you're going to be paying for, the most expensive thing you're going to be paying for if you do choose to live out, is rent. So What that means is loads of different options in terms of accommodation. Some accommodations will include your bills, some of them won't. So some of the bills that you might be paying for are things like your phone, your gas, electric, your water, internet, TV license, that type of thing. These are all things that students have to consider paying for. I myself, when I started university, I was probably a bit naive when I started. I hadn't had to pay for the majority of these things before. All of my income previously was disposable to me. So I even remember setting up like a little budget of like, oh, okay, I'm getting this much in tuition fees, I'm getting this much in maintenance loan, sorry, and this is what I need to pay for. And I didn't consider all of these things. So just to give you a heads up, these are things that you are going to have to pay for. Just bear that in mind. Things like food and groceries, you're probably going to be paying for the first time ever. We do recommend do not spend all your money on Starbucks coffee, because you will realise it's not going to go very far. You're going to be paying for things like transport potentially, so whether that's train travel or transport to and from campus or your accommodation. Consider all of these things into your cost of living, because they do add up very quickly. You're going to be paying for things like course materials. So even though you do have a library available to get some textbooks out, you might choose to purchase some other textbooks, things like stationery, supplies that you're going to need, printing, those types of things are all costs that you're going to be experiencing whilst you are studying. There's also things to consider like clothes and toiletries, so that's going to be taking some of your budget up. And also things like insurance, so you might decide you're going to have contents insurance or insurance on your phone while you're at university, and depending on the type of accommodation that you're living in, it's definitely something to look at. And yeah, just make sure you're budgeting all of these things into your costs.
Thank you so much for that, Keeleigh. I'm going to bring the rest of the team back in on this now. So guys, what about your living costs? What were your actual living costs? I'm going to open this up to the team. Does anyone else want to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll touch on this very quickly because I noticed we've got a comment from Mara about accommodation. So the big one for a lot of students, and again, I think Nikki did touch on this slightly, and I know that Faye also moved into accommodation as well. Accommodation obviously is a big cost that comes with going to university. If you're looking to move out, go to a new city, move into somewhere completely new, you might be moving into student accommodation with lots and lots of other students, and that makes up a massive part of the university experience, because you're able to kind of gain that a little bit independence. You're able to kind of start living on your own, cooking on your own, doing your own washing and all that kind of good stuff. So that's a big part of that sort of university experience, is you being able to kind of do that, and that is where those kind of big costs will come from. So you'll find that that's probably one of your largest outgoings, is suddenly you've got to pay for this rent, and it might include your utility bills and that sort of thing as well. So that's something that you've heavily got to consider, is when you're starting to research to different universities, or indeed at this stage, I imagine you've actually chosen what university you're going to, and you're looking at accommodation, if you've not already, looking at the different types of costs, looking at what your monthly outgoings are or what your termly outgoings are, and just kind of seeing how much is that going to cost you, and then you'll be able to kind of budget from there how much roughly you've got for your maintenance loan, which again, we're going to come on to in a second.
Cool. Faye?
I think after accommodation, my next biggest cost was my bus pass. So I didn't go to De Montfort University. They didn't offer the course that I did at university. Otherwise, I'd be right there. But yeah, after my accommodation, it was my transport costs that were quite high. So that was something I had to really budget for as well. So one thing that is really good about DMU is the fact that everything is within walking distance, so you don't have to budget for that. So you'll have a little bit more to spend on, food or social life, whatever it is you want to spend your money on.
Cool. So just going back to this Mara comment talking about accommodation. Mara, I was a proper cheapskate. So I didn't spend absolutely zilch on accommodation, even though I moved out. So what I did was I had a few friends at university that I was very, very pally with, and I just couch surfed. So every other week I'll just sleep on the couches of other people and let them guys take the accommodation hit. So when everyone's talking about doing chores of washing, cleaning, grocery shopping, I didn't do none of that. Come on, guys, get someone else to do it. Make some good friends, buy them a pizza, get them a takeaway at the end of each week, and everything was all happy as Larry. So there's another tip for me, my personal tip around getting around accommodation. But again, it's entirely up to you how you guys go about it. So we've mentioned maintenance loans. So Ben was mentioning it just a bit. Faye, can you give us a bit more details around what that is and what it means for students?
So the maintenance loan itself is something that it's essentially just living costs, but we give it a fancy name, the maintenance loan. And that's how you can pay for things like accommodation. So if you are a UK student or you've been settled in the UK for a certain amount of time, then you can access this. And it's just to help you with living costs. And there's absolutely nobody telling you what you need to spend it on. That's for you to make that very, very wise decision. Make sure you don't spend it all at once. And obviously you prioritize what needs to come out first out of that money. You get your maintenance loan in 3 installments and it goes directly to you. So it doesn't go straight to the university, like your tuition fees. So it comes usually in the first semester, so September time, October, and then after Christmas, and then after Easter. So you've got about 3 months at least there where you've got to really budget, maybe make a spreadsheet, just as Ben's mug kindly tells us how great they are. He loves spreadsheets, it seems. So yeah, it's probably might be the first time that you've had quite a large sum, sum that big popped into your bank account for many people anyway. So yeah, it's that process of deciding what to do with it. Now, when you do apply for the maintenance loan, you do it at the same time as the tuition fee loan, and you actually apply to where you apply for the part of the UK you normally live in as well. So there's lots of different student finance out there. There's Student Finance England, Wales. So have a little look at that as well. These are some of the figures on the screen here for assessing how much you would actually get to live on as part of your maintenance loan. So they do have a look at how much money is brought into your household. So if you live with mum, for example, or you live with mum and dad, whatever money they bring in, then they want to see that to make an assessment. They'll also have a look at where you live whilst you're at university. So if you decide to live at home, then you may get less than somebody who decides to live away. And if you decide to live away from home in London, then you'll get even more. But that's because living costs are a little bit more expensive there. So it's already quite a good idea to have a look at how much you'll have to live on whilst you're at university. You can pop into Google Student Finance Calculator. It brings up a government website, and you might need help from whoever pays the bills in your household. But it's good to get a start, and then you can have a look at things like, okay, I want to live in accommodation. What kind of accommodation can I get? Can I get that swanky mansion, or am I like Dal, where I'll just couch surf?
Cheers, thank you so much for that, Faye. Guys, what did you guys do with your maintenance loans? What did you spend it on?
To be honest, I spent most of my maintenance loan on food. I stayed at home, so I think out of all of us, I stayed at home. You think you won't be spending a lot of money, that you'll save a lot of money, but then that money is going to other places like food. You wouldn't feel guilty about it, and also, like Faye said, transport. Because although I lived in Leicester, I didn't live on campus as the students who are moving away from home would be living. So I did have to pay for the bus and things like that. Yeah.
What about the rest of you?
Oh gosh, the first thing I did when I got my maintenance loan was I paid for a PlayStation 4. So not a good idea. Not a good idea. Don't buy a game console with it. Bad investment.
I think I didn't have.
Faye, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't have a massive amount to live on at university, but I tended to work during the summer holidays full time. And that allowed me to boost what I had to live on, but it also allowed me to travel a little bit as well, do some weekend trips to places like Barcelona or Madrid, a couple of different places, just to try and see some places. I studied languages, so that was kind of my thing, travel around, as Dal enjoys too.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for me, you want to answer yours?
Telephone.
Sorry. Sorry.
You want to pick it up? Yeah, so like Faye was saying, with my maintenance loan, like she said, was the point is that it's your money, so no one can tell you how to spend your money. So this money that you're getting to come to university, it's entirely up to yourselves how you do it. So for me, like Faye, I got myself a job that paid me more than enough to survive without using my maintenance loan. So what I did with my maintenance loan, I started to travel. So there's a few countries that I wanted to go to, and every year we took 3 or 4 trips per year, which really excelled my time at university. And I'm so glad I did that, because when I look back on it now, that was probably arguably some of the highlights of my university year. And it wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have that maintenance loan, if I didn't go to university, and if I didn't have such a good part-time job as well. Keeleigh, before we move on, she froze. Is she there?
Honestly.
I think she's there.
It's all pixelated and distorted.
Hello?
Yeah.
Are we still on the old dial-up, Keeleigh?
I think she's frozen.
Oh, you know what? Keeleigh will come back to you. We'll put a pin in it. So, how are you there?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to it, Keeleigh. So, Ben, how do we apply for student finance?
That is a very, very good question. It's a good thing I've got a script in front of me that will tell me exactly that, because otherwise, who's to know? I think we briefly flashed up the link earlier for student finance. So that's going to be a really good place to start, is looking at the government website and make sure that you go through to that link, because all of the resources for student finance are available just there. Now, when you do type in student finance on Google, it can give back quite a few different results. And I noticed that around this time, there are sometimes some phishing websites that can sort of catch you out for student finance. Student finance is completely free to sort of apply to. So if you go onto a website that's asking for a charge for you to do something like that, you're probably on the wrong website. So do make sure that you go through the correct website, which is the link just here. So go through the gov.uk website. On there, as I mentioned, lots of resources that you can use. There is a student finance calculator, which I think Faye mentioned before, that will give you some idea about your sort of eligibility in terms of how much you can get per year for your student finance. So you can just see roughly how much you're going to be able to use per year to actually obviously live off and pay your rent and all the stuff that we've just talked about. When you go on there, obviously you set yourself an account. So you log in through the portal. You can create your own username and password. Obviously make sure you keep those safe so that you're able to log in the future, because the other thing to remember is you do have to reapply year on year. So you need to make sure you keep those details safe. Now, student finance will normally open sort of around February, March time. So it is open. In fact, it's been so open for so long now. The deadline for student finance is actually tomorrow. So if you haven't already applied for student finance, if you're a UK student, you do need to make sure you jump on that. It's the other reason why we're doing this stream today, just to remind you that if you haven't already done it, you need to make sure you go away and do it. You need to provide yourself an email address so that student finance can contact you. You need to provide all of those sort of normal details and what university you're going to be applying to and what course. If you're currently in a stage of where you're not sure where you're going to be going, put your best sort of top choice on there for now. And if you do end up changing your mind after you've created your application, you can go back in and change it. So the nice thing about student finance is you can just log in at any time and adjust those details if you need to. You need to provide some proof of identity, so normally something like a passport or the original birth certificate. You also need to provide your national insurance number, and you also need to provide the bank where the maintenance loan is going to be going into. So as we talked about before, the tuition fees don't go into your bank account, they go straight to the university, but the maintenance loan will be going into a bank account. So it's a good idea to either set up something like a student bank account that you can pop it into. Just make sure you've got somewhere safe to keep all that money that's going to be coming into your bank account each term. The last couple of bits that you need to remember to do, obviously, is your sponsor details. That was the bit I was forgetting there. So when you're applying for student finance, you can normally provide your parents' details onto the application as well. So when you do that, it'll ask you to create a sponsor account, and then that will be sent over to your parents' guardians, and they will be able to then use that to obviously support your application. And that's how student finance calculates, based on your household income, how much you're likely to get, which is something we talked about a little bit with the student finance calculator. When they log in, they will have their own separate logins as well. So they need to make sure they create those accounts so they're attached to those, to your particular student bank account. I think I've covered everything there. I think that's everything. There you go. I'm just clarifying, what is the date? Have I got that wrong?
Let's have a look, because we did actually have a question from Braden, and it was, what is the deadline for applying to student finance?
Okay. Apologies.
It has changed a lot recently with everything that's going on, because originally it was earlier in May, but now I think it might be the 25th of May. So that's something that does keep changing. Just note that just even if you don't meet that deadline, it doesn't mean that you can't apply for student finance. It's just to guarantee that you get your money on time for the start of semester. So it's not like a completely hard deadline. But it's recommended.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so apologies if I've got the date wrong there. So obviously you can still apply. I think the other thing to mention there with that deadline, as Faith just said, is if you do end up changing your mind or applying late, so if you've not applied to university now, but you change your mind later on and you decide to apply a little bit later through something like clearing, obviously then you will have to apply for student finance. But try and get it in as early as you can. Try and do it as soon as you can, obviously this week ideally, to make sure that you are guaranteed your maintenance loan for when you start in September.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Ben. Great save, Faye.
Yeah, thank you, Faye.
That was another basketball analogy. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to get anywhere with that today, am I? So I'm going to quit while I'm behind. So we've gone through what tuition fee loans are, we've gone through maintenance loans, we've gone through some living costs that you might have at university. One of the biggest questions that we're always faced with is the student loan worth it? And I feel like Faye is the best person to shed some light on this with her answer in regards to repayments, because when you start to look into repayments, it sort of answers that question for you. Don't you think, Faye?
I massively agree. Yeah, absolutely. What's really quite fair and probably one of the best loans that you will get out there, repayment schemes, is essentially how it works when you graduate and you start repaying, if you do repay your student loan. So when you graduate, your tuition fee loan and maintenance loan, if you've borrowed both of those, get consolidated into one lump sum, and you actually make repayments only in the April after graduating, and once you're earning a certain amount also. So at the moment, it's £26,575 per year. That keeps changing annually at the moment. So obviously they have a look at what kind of wages they expect graduates to be on. And as you can see, it's quite a fair repayment scheme if you're earning, say, around £27,000 per year, which I think is a really decent wage coming out of graduation. That's quite a fair wage. It's £7.50 repayment a month. If you're earning about £30,000 a year, you're looking at a monthly repayment of about £30. So you might find that some of you have a mobile phone bill that is more than £30 if you are, particularly into getting the latest iPhone or whatever it is. So out of this, you're getting a university education. So something that will stay with you forever. Unlike your phone, if you break it up, drop it on the floor, it smashes. You have to go out and get a new one. So this comes, follows you. It's transferable. You can use your degree worldwide. And as you can see, your repayments go on how much you earn and not how much you've actually borrowed. If you take a temporary job coming out of university, maybe it's a 6-month position, a 12-month position, you will start making repayments if you earn over that income threshold. But if you're not working, it just stops. So you haven't got anybody chasing you for money, debt collectors, and it's completely tied within your wage. So it's all kind of set up by the tax man essentially. So you don't have to set up any direct debits. If you do decide to move out of the country, though, then it gets a little bit, difficult for the government to figure out kind of what you're earning, what kind of tax you pay. So you have to let student finance know if that does apply to you and you do move out of the country once you graduate. Anything that you've repaid, if you haven't repaid it within 30 years, it's completely wiped anyway. So some people might find, if you work in the voluntary sector, or maybe you don't have a job where you earn a lot of money, it's something that you're doing, you love it, but you're not earning over £27,000, then you'll never make a repayment, and again it still gets wiped after 30 years. So is it worth it? Absolutely. I would definitely say it's not something that keeps me awake at night, gives me nightmares. I think you can have a look online at what your repayments are, how much you're repaying every year or every month. You can have a look at, what you've got left to pay. Most people probably won't repay it within their actual 30 years. I think unofficial stats say you would have to be earning at least £45,000 when you graduate, and obviously increase that each year to be able to repay that within 30 years. And something probably very boring but very important to mention is interest rates. So that is something that is attached to the student loan. Again, if you just have a think about if you borrowed, say, £50,000 in 20, 30 years' time, that's going to be devalued. It's not going to be quite worth it. It's the same. So there is inflation on that RPI plus interest of up to 3%. But again, a lot of people won't actually make repayments or perhaps even repay it all within that 30 years.
Thank you for that, Faye. One question, we were speaking before we came on air this morning. One question that we always get is that students are thinking about taking this gap year now. They're worried about the effect of coronavirus. What would you guys say to that? So I know we was having an unofficial conversation about this earlier, but what would your guys say thoughts be on that?
I would say you've got to think about what you're actually going to be able I would consider what you can actually do in this gap year. So a lot of people in their gap years, they work for a while and then go traveling, whereas we don't know right now what the job market's going to look like. It's going to be quite difficult to get employment this year, not to scare anyone, but employability is going to be a bit all over the place this year. And also in terms of travel, we don't know what the travel market's going to look like. We don't know when we're going to be safe to start traveling this year. So I think there are a lot of people that are now considering higher education, considering degrees, who might not have done previously because they've realised actually it increases my employability and gives me a bit more job security in the future. So I would say do think about what you're actually going to do with your time, because you don't just want to waste a year doing nothing. So university might be actually more productive for you to do and upskill yourself in the meantime.
Cool. What about you guys in regards to the loan segment to it? So if we keep it on the context of student loan and tie that into it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, because again, things are changing all the time. So we're still not 100% sure what is kind of going on. I know that's not a very confident sort of answer, but realistically things are changing sort of day to day. Universities can kind of tackle it in their own way. You see some universities tackle it in one way, some universities tackle it another way. If you choose to go through university and it is still online learning, you are still going to get, as best as university can provide, all the information that you need to be able to do your studies for that year. Yes, the bit that you might miss out on in some regards is some of the social aspect. So you've got to weigh into how important that is as part of the university experience. And for some, that will be extremely important. So it does have its impact in that regard. But the university is currently looking at ways that we can do online learning that is going to be as most impactful and as engaging as it can be, so that you are still able to get the best of the university experience. If it's only for, let's say the first term, and by Christmas everything is sort of back to normal and we can come on campus as per normal, it might be that then we can do a lot of the sort of freshers and the social activity stuff, just do it a little bit later and we do it in January. So these things change all the time. You've kind of just got to keep an eye on it, wherever it is you decide to apply to, whether it is us or wherever, just keeping an eye on what the situation is at that time for that university, I guess. Cool.
Whilst we're on this topic of conversation, Sai has asked a question that ties very nicely into what we're currently discussing. Is September intake on?
Yeah, I guess yes, in some capacity. Ultimately, sorry, back to me again. Yes, in some capacity. We still don't know what it is going to be like. We're putting in contingencies for it to be on campus, but still with social distancing. We're putting contingencies in for it to be online for the first term. Things change. So if you have applied to us, we will make sure to keep communicating with you as best we can when we have the details for it. Cool. Faye, anything else you want to add on to that?
Yeah, remember students are finishing now, they're doing their exams, so we've got June, July, August into September to work with different ways in which we can deliver online content to students. So we've got time to make sure that it is as efficient, as effective as possible, as streamlined as possible, to ensure that we are offering all of our students still a very, very high level of customer service and engagement.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Whilst we're on the topic of conversations, we've had one from Hen. How can international students take loans, since we talked about EU and home students?
I had to slap it at the picture of the dog.
Do
you want me to take that one?
Oh, yeah, go on. Yeah, we'll go to Faye, then we'll come back to Tay.
Yeah.
We've got some information for international students on our website, so you can actually have a look. We've got a list of countries on there with a bit more information. We also have some of the agencies that we work with that are in your country to be able to support you through the application process and how you go about taking student loans. It might be that you need to have a look at student loans in your country. I know my partner is American and he studied in the UK, and his loans came from America, not from the UK. So it might also just be looking at what is available in your country to support you during your studies abroad.
Tay?
Yeah, I was going to essentially say the same thing. So instead of getting the loan from the UK, you'd be getting a loan out from your home country, and the government there would be sponsoring, or you could, pay for yourself. Again, with a lot of different universities, they have scholarships in place for international students. So do look into them and see what the universities do provide.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Hen. Hope we've answered your questions, guys. If you're still watching out there, please do keep them coming in and we'll answer them as we go along. Now, one of the questions that many students will probably have on their lips is, what do we do if your maintenance loan isn't enough? So I'm going to go to our recent graduate, Keeleigh, who's hopefully going to be able to help us out on this.
Thank you. Yeah, so for myself, I can definitely say my maintenance loan wasn't enough. So I didn't go to university in Leicester. So the city that I went to was a lot more expensive. The accommodation, I believe in my second year, my accommodation wasn't even covered by my maintenance loan. So there's a shortfall there and I had to make it up somehow. There are a couple of different options in there about how you can make up that extra bit of money. So things like parental support, if you're in a position where your parents can support you potentially. It wasn't the case for me, but you might be able to sit down and have a real conversation with your parents. If you go and just look at the city that you're going to, get a rough idea of how much rent might be, estimate your living costs, look at how much you might get in student finance on the student finance calculator, just have a sit down conversation with your parents and see if it's something that they're prepared for. They might have savings that they've put aside for this type of thing. Just have a real conversation with them. The other thing to consider are things like scholarships, as we've mentioned. There's scholarships, bursaries and grants that are available. Look at the university that you're applying for, see what they have available, what they have there. Things like sports scholarships are in place. There could be low income family support. So just look at all the different options that are out there. There's things like academic achievements as well. So for some universities, if you achieve above a certain level in your grades, they'll give you financial support at university. Just look at all the different options on their websites. It's often really easy to find. So myself, this is my option that I chose. So I had a part-time job. I think one of the things most people don't realise when they go to university is just how long the summer holidays are. So summer holidays, depending on the university you go to, range from about 3 months to 4 months. That is a long time to be employed. It's almost like a quarter of a year. And you can be working full time in that time and just make a bit of savings so that you start university with a little bit of lump sum of money that can keep you going. What I did myself, so I worked for retail stores, so I would transfer between the two. So in the summertime, I would work at my home store, and then when I was at uni, I would work at the store there, and I would transfer to and from Christmas and things like that. So I was able to make a bit of money on the side. So definitely look into things like that. Also, when you apply for university, you are able to apply for student bank accounts. So this is definitely something that I did. I used the Santander bank account personally, and one of the main benefits was that you had a interest-free overdraft. What that means is that you can go over the limit in your bank account by an agreed amount, and you don't have to pay it back immediately, and you're not going to face any penalties in terms of late fees or fees that you need to pay back. So it's not going to affect your credit rating or anything like that. I would note, obviously, you have a certain amount of time from when you graduate to actually pay that back. I've literally just had an email from my bank to say your student account your graduate account now is maturing. So basically don't get an overdraft anymore. So it is something you do have to pay back. So just manage it sensibly. There's also things that you can do at the moment, like applying for hardship funds from the university. So if you're facing any serious financial difficulties and you're really struggling, there's always support systems in place to help with university. So don't let it worry you too much. There is always a way to figure this out.
Cool. Thank you so much. Guys, what about you guys? What did you guys do when your maintenance loan wasn't enough?
Yeah, I also did part-time during Christmas time, and whenever I had free time, I did part-time, and I did ask my parents for money. So yeah.
Good old bank of mum and dad, eh?
It helps. It helps.
I worked while I was actually at university. So I had a part-time job when I started university. I actually worked for a Blockbusters, which I don't think anybody's going to remember what they are now at this stage. But then they went bust, so I lost my job there, and then I actually ended up getting a job at the university. So for 10 hours a week, I had a flexible part-time job in and around my studies. I could do those 10 hours whenever I liked, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. So have a look to see if your university, if you come into DMU, have a look at various schemes that we've got that will allow you to work actually in and around your studies and just do sort of 10 hours here and there between lectures and that sort of thing. One of the things that we do have, which is absolutely fantastic, is our student ambassador scheme. So we've got loads and loads of students, about 130 of them, that will just work shifts whenever they're available. They can sign up for the ones that they're interested in or they're available for, and they can get paid really quite well for it, and they can just do it whenever they've got the availability to do so.
Blockbusters, eh? What a throwback on a Thursday.
Best job I ever had. Best job I ever had. Apart from this one, of course.
I was just saying.
These millennials don't know about Blockbusters, do they?
Oh, super good. 10 free films a week. Brilliant.
LimeWire, the good old days. Okay, Faye, anything you want to add on to that? What you did in regards to when your maintenance loan wasn't enough?
Yeah, I think I just didn't want to detract from my studies, and that there wasn't anything like a student ambassador scheme when I went to university, which is like a long time ago now. So I think I would have done that, because it's really flexible work. So you just sign up to what you're comfortable with and kind of when you can work as well. So I, like Keeleigh, worked in retail, and I would go back in the holidays, so Christmas, Easter, and the summer as well. And that's how I would top up my maintenance loan, because again, it wasn't quite enough. I lived in halls of residence in my first year, and it was catered, and that was quite expensive compared to second and third year, where I had probably a lot more money to live on. So yeah, it was sometimes a bit challenging. You do get inventive. You create some crazy meals with what's left in the fridge. But I tell you what, there's nothing better than when you have, you use absolutely everything in your fridge. You make some creative meals, and then when you actually do go shopping and you open the fridge, and it like sings to you all this food. So yeah, I think it teaches you a lot. If you don't have a lot of money to live on at university, it teaches you a lot of skills to be creative, innovative, just how to make your money work, how you could pick up a little bit of extra money if it's temping jobs, for example, something that you could just do for a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes it's even signing up to support festivals where you only have to sign up to work a weekend. So yeah, it's about getting creative, I think. I have no idea if I answered the question or I just went off on a tangent.
No, that was good.
Guys, can you hear me?
I think so, yeah. Dale's having some technical issues, I think.
I'm having a lot of technical issues, not a little. So, Faye, I think, although I didn't hear it, I'm pretty sure that you answered that question spot on. So thank you.
I wasn't sure because you were just giving me a blank look.
She did.
I thought, what on earth?
I'm sure my colleagues will vouch for you, Faye. So Frederick has got in touch.
Hello. Oh,
Yeah.
I think Dale may have gone again. I'll read Frederick's question while Dale fights with his Wi-Fi. Frederick says, "Can you pay student accommodation with part-time jobs?" And I think we've highlighted that you sort of can, from what myself and Keeleigh said about our obviously part-time work. So that always does sort of have that additional support that you to sort of pay for those sort of things. But also it might be that your maintenance loan goes towards your accommodation, but there you go, he's gone. He might be back, we'll see. Your maintenance goes towards that, and then your part-time job, your 10 hours a week, whatever, that goes towards just for your, being able to go out and socialise and that sort of thing.
I think it just depends on repayments as well. If you're in halls of residence, I remember it was termly, so it was 3 big payments. So that might not be something that you could do if you're relying upon a monthly wage and you don't have the money up front. Whereas if you're living in something like a student house where you pay a landlord monthly, then it might be that you could do that through part-time jobs. So I think it just depends on how much cash flow you have and how often you make the repayments on your accommodation.
Absolutely. Dal, give us a little wave.
I weren't really frozen, guys. I just wanted to quickly pop outside and enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah, he's just gone to get himself another coffee. That's what he was doing. Well, thank you very much for that. Do you want to tackle the last question, Dal? Or get us up on the last question? No, I think he's gone again. Okay, let me sort of take over while Dal goes and have another word with his Wi-Fi or gets another coffee. We'll see. Another question we had from Carolina is: are there any conditions, for example, that you live or work in the UK for some specific time before getting the maintenance loan when goes about international students, of course? So I think we sort of touched on this earlier. Faye, do you want to jump in on this very quickly, touching on what you said earlier?
Yeah, sure. So usually you have to have lived in the UK for a certain amount of time. So I believe at the moment it's 5 years, but it can completely depend on what your situation is, you know, depending why you've come to the UK, for example. There's some certain rules with anyone seeking asylum, for example. So just pop onto the government website, pop in your details, you know, what's your situation, and they'll be able to let you know what you're eligible for.
Perfect. And then Ruby has just asked another question about this year's intake. Hello, Dal. Glad you could join us. This year's intake will be affected by COVID-19 with regards to course fees. As we said before, things are changing all the time at the minute. If you have applied to us, we will try and keep you in the loop as things change. But at the minute, we're not 100%. Nothing's confirmed at the minute, I think is the best thing to say there, unless anybody else wants to just touch on that or add anything to that.
Very political, Ben.
No, I was just going to say, international students, if you're worried about not getting a job in the UK, they can work up to, I believe, 20 hours. So if they do want to find a job and to help them out, and, you know, if they are struggling as well, so they can, obviously, you need to work within those 20 hours and that should be okay as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your question there, Ruby. Hopefully, again, I know it wasn't an overly complicated or involved answer there, but things are changing all the time. So you just got to keep checking back with us. We'll try and obviously give you some more concrete answers as the term dates get closer. So the last little bit, and again, I've sort of taken over hosting a little bit, Dow, just in case he needs to go and have words with his router. The last little bit that we've not been able to cover on this stream as we sort of draw towards the end is just looking at sort of scholarships and bursaries and grants. Now, we've talked a little bit about this. We've sort of touched around this as we've talked about things like international fees, and we've talked about obviously extra support that students can get. But Tay, am I okay to just jump over to you, give us a little bit more about sort of scholarships and bursaries that are on offer for students?
Yeah, sure. So as you know, Nikki mentioned earlier, scholarships, bursaries, and grants, these are something that you don't have to worry about paying back to the bank or the government. So these are something that you don't have to repay. They're all yours, so you won't really feel guilty about spending that money. Again, you get lots of different types of scholarships. As Nikki mentioned, you get scholarships if you're high achievement. So say you've done really well and you've done more than your expected grades, and you can get scholarships for that. Again, the scholarships for things like sports and extracurricular activities. So with DMU, we have the DMU sports scholarship. So say you're really good at football or rugby, and you know you play for your university or you play on a national level. You can get scholarships for that, and what that would do is waiver your tuition fee. Again, you would get bursaries. Again, they're not. This is paid by the university itself, so they're usually given to people who for financial need. You know, they can't make the ends meet. You get scholarships, bursaries, for care leavers. So you get about £1,000, I believe, here at Dartmouth University, and you also get bursaries for estranged from family. So you know you're not living, you're by yourself, you don't have any additional support like you know your parents or anything like that. So that's there as well. There's also bursaries depending on the course that you do. So there's a lot of NHS bursaries. So if you're studying a course such as nursing, dentistry, medicine, or some sort of health-related kind of subject, you do get scholarships for that. More so, you get travel grants. You either get travel grants from the university, or like Nikki said, you can get travel grants from banks. But I was also with Santander, and I'm telling you, I use that the rail card so much. Like every month, or my friend was living in London, and we would just visit her all the time because the train tickets were like, instead of being at £60, it would be like £20. Again, there's also like this little niche kind of scholarships and bursaries as well. So for example, if you're a spouse or a child of pharmacist, you can get up to £3,000 just for your course and your study. In regards to Denmark for university, everyone's here. In regards to Denmark for university, we have the DMU Global High Flyer Scholarship, and what that is, you would get up to £1,000, I believe, and if you've done exceptionally well and you're doing really great with your studies and things like that, again, DMU Global is something that you want to look into, and these pay for your even placement years, your cultural exchange programs and internships as well. You would have to, look at the universities, whether they provide these sort of things. I've mentioned DMU Sports Scholarship, maybe you want to, and also Access Scholarship. So if you want to go to university and you haven't done the right kind of subject, but the Access Scholarship will also help you out just before, starting the university.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tay. Dal's back in the room.
Strategic timeout, guys. Strategic timeout.
He's there, but he might drop out again as he goes off and adds another coffee or whatever he's up to. We've got the last couple of minutes of the live stream anyway, Dal. So you've got this time to think about another basketball pun before we close off the stream anyway.
You lot didn't just get the timeout, did you?
No,
I
did.
I did the hand gestures as well.
Didn't have a clue. No idea. Went straight over my head, I'm afraid. So yeah, hopefully we've been able to answer quite a lot of questions here throughout the stream. And thank you very much, Tay, for talking a little bit about scholarships and bursaries there. Does anybody have anything they want to add with regards to the scholarships and bursaries just while we're on the topic? No? Oh, go on, Dale.
I don't know what was said, so.
Fair enough. Anybody else? Good stuff. Okay, so I know we did have some questions submitted to us before the live stream. So I'm just going to have a quick look at those, just to see if there's any of those that we've not sort of talked about while we close off the last few minutes. So thank you very much to everybody that submitted those questions to us. So we're going to try and get through some of those now. Let's have a little look here. So one of the questions we had was, what happens if you drop out of university? So what happens to your loan if you drop out of university?
I can answer that. So if you do drop out, it really depends on when you drop out. So if you drop out within the first semester, you would only be paying that 25%. And then if you drop out in the second semester, again, it's 25%. And if you drop out in the last semester, third semester, you would be paying 50% of your tuition fee. So again, it just depends when you drop out.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yes, so that answers that question there. Thank you very much. Another question that we had, and this was submitted to us by Keeleigh, was how long does the application process take roughly? Now, it's been a few years since I've done this, so maybe Keeleigh or Tay could highlight some of this.
I would say to sit down with your family member, whoever you're living with, because they will ask a lot about their side of things more than they do about your things, because obviously they're taking into consideration your parents' financial situation rather than your own. I'd say it probably takes about half an hour or so. I'd say if your parents do have their own business, then it's probably a little bit more complex. So it varies depending on how you're doing it. But if it's just like a standard, how much is your income, that type of thing, it doesn't take long at all. But I would say, remember that you're going to have to repeat this process every year and keep up to date with your parents' finances every year. So at the end of every academic year, you will apply again for next year's student finance. So you do need to keep re-entering this information. So just keep an eye on the deadlines, basically.
Perfect. Faye, did you want to add anything to that?
Just that. I think it's all digital now. So you sign a document to say, you understand that you're taking out a loan from the government. Once you submit it, it usually takes, I think now, between 6 and 8 weeks to process, get that back to you, confirm everything. So that's why that deadline is in place, or soft deadline, for making sure that you get your money on time. It's not to say if you apply in clearing that you won't get your money on time for the start of university. It's just that they don't want everybody making that application last minute. Otherwise, it would make things a little bit tricky for them.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We did just get a question through from Naveen, who says, when is the next intake for MBA? Tay, do you want to just quick touch on that one?
Yeah, so as you guys might be aware, like the UCAS deadline was on the 15th of January, but however, our university, we're still taking in applicants for undergraduate and postgraduate students. But I would highly advise them to, make the application as soon as possible. Just to make sure that you are guaranteed a place of study in September, and also, things like student finance, all that is ready for you in order to come in September.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So the last couple of questions we had through the booking form, we had one from Braden, who I think we've already mentioned before. We said when the deadline was. Obviously, we said that ideally it's 25th of May, I think we agreed upon. I may have said the 22nd, so apologies. As Faye mentioned, it's a soft deadline. You need to make sure you get your application in as soon as possible so that you're not missing out. And the last question that we had through the booking form, I believe, was how does student finance work? How does student finance and funding work for adult students with children? This is from Christopher.
Again, with sorry. I was just going to say, if you do have children or anything like that, you do get help from the universities, as bursaries to help you out extra. Again, you would go through the same system. If you're a mature student, you can still apply for student finance, and then you can apply for the scholarships and bursaries that are available at the universities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Dan's gone awfully quiet now. I still can't tell if he's here or not.
I am. I'm here. You guys are just answering the questions so well. I can just sit back and relax.
And there you go. He did all the hard work. Go on, Faye. Sorry.
Something to go back on is that when you make a student finance application, you do declare on there if you do, for example, have children, if you have any, I think they call it dependents. So they do take that into consideration. So you may get extra support from the government. It might be that you don't have to repay it, but do start doing that research now. Get onto the gov.uk website so that you can make, plans for going to university.
There you go. So as Faye's kindly teed me up there to put the link on screen. Absolutely. Go and check all that out, because again, some of those scholarships and bursaries we mentioned before, you'll be able to find a bit more information about those. As Faye's just mentioned about dependencies, is what they'll be classed out on the application form. You'll be able to go and find out a little bit more about those on there and what additional support you can get if you fall into that category. We say, got a question there. Got an offer letter from De Montfort University recently. Thank you very much. If you do have a question, obviously make sure you pop it in the comments. We are going to be closing the stream very shortly, so get your last questions in now before we do wrap up. One other question I did just want to pop up on the screen, and I think we have mentioned this before when Faye mentioned repayments, but I just want to reiterate here, is student loan like any other debt? So who'd like to tackle this?
I would definitely say it's not like another debt in that it doesn't affect your credit rating. So I think a lot of people worry, oh, what if I get a maintenance loan out and tuition fee loan? It's a lot of money. How am I going to buy a house or get a car in the future? It does not affect your credit rating. I think that's one of the best things about the studying, is that it does mean that you are likely to earn a higher income in the future, but it doesn't affect your credit rating negatively. So you can still apply for a mortgage, you can still apply for car finances and that type of thing. It won't affect you negatively. The other thing is that if you do get married, it's not like it's a joint debt. It just stays just with yourself, and it's just for yourself to pay back. So I would say I wouldn't really see it as a debt. I don't consider it a debt. I see it as more of an investment into my future, and I think that's the best way to look at it, really.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
I think just remember that if you're not earning, you don't make repayments. Whereas, say, for example, I wasn't earning tomorrow, I still have to make my mortgage repayment. So I have to have a serious chat with the bank. So, yeah, it's a really fair repayment system.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Faye. We did get that last question from Gagandeep. He said he had a question, and he has just said, could you please tell me, I'm coming to DMU for the MBA due to coronavirus. Is this safe? We're a bit ahead of the game here. Obviously, it's a few months until your intake intake is as normal at the minute. The university will obviously communicate with you if anything changes. So just keep an eye out at the moment, whether it's going to be online study or whether it's going to be on campus with social distancing. We aren't sure. Nothing is confirmed yet. So just keep checking back with us. As we've said, we're not confirmed all that much at the minute. And we had one last one from Frederick. It says, is there any scholarship for DMU Global? And do we have to pay trips for academic trips? And is this compulsory?
Yeah, for DMU Global, there are scholarships. So say they would be paying, I think for a lot of the students choose to go to New York for like from all different kind of subject areas and faculties, and they pay depending on sometimes £500, £700, and so you would initially only be paying £200 towards a trip or whichever you to do. So yeah, DMU Global does have that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And the DMU Global trips are fantastic. So if you are coming to us to study, do take full advantage of those because they are pretty fantastic and you do get some money to support you with those. Lovely. Dal, do you have anything you want to add? Because I appreciate you went a bit quiet there when your internet cut out. Anything you want to mention about finance?
Nah, I feel like the guys have covered it very well. Well done, team.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting for the first sort of 40 minutes of the stream. Sorry that you dropped out there. You couldn't carry on with your basketball puns there.
It's all right. I'll save them for the next one.
Same
guys,
for the next
please
one.
be prepared. Please watch the documentary.
I'm purposely not going to now, so they all could just still go over my head. Well, thank you so much for watching this stream. Thank you very much for coming along. Hopefully, we've been able to answer lots and lots and lots of questions here just about student finance. If you have any other questions that we weren't able to answer today, we do have a chat service that we are all available on to come and have a conversation with. So it's called UniBuddy, but it's available via this link just here. You'll be able to see that in the comments. If you go through to that link, you'll see all our little profiles on there and you can come and have a chat with us. So if we've got any burning questions about the university or about student finance, you can go along to that link and we will do our very, very best to try and answer them. If you are thinking, oh, I'm not sure whether to come to DMU, I want to find out a bit more about the courses, we are going to be running a virtual digital open day on the 4th of July. It's on the Saturday. That will have lots and lots of live streams like this. So you might see our faces again, unfortunately. And there'll be obviously lots of information about the academic courses and all that sort of good stuff. You better find out more about accommodation, which we talked about. So you can come along to that and find out lots and lots of information there. And then last but certainly not least, we are running more live streams like this in the future. Perhaps not next week because it is half term in the UK, but there are going to be live streams going on up until probably sort of June, July time. So if you want to find more information about UCAS, personal statements, student finance, we'll be running stuff like this continuously. So you can go along to that link and you can sign up. I think I've done everything there. I think I've sorted everything. Thank you so much to you guys for answering lots and lots of questions. Thank you to Dal for hosting most of this stream as well. Hopefully you can go and sort your Wi-Fi out. Go and have a word with Virgin Media. Go and tell them to sort it out. Get straight on the phone to them, mate.
It never lags when I'm watching Netflix or when I'm on Xbox. It's only when I come to do work. I wonder why that's...
Oh, I wonder why that is, mate. I wonder why that is. It's funny that. Strange.
Who knows, mate? Who knows?
Who knows? But yes, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Go and enjoy some sunshine. Enjoy the week. Stay safe, and we'll see you at the next one. See you later.